Well, hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. This is the Red Shadow and I'm back with the next installment on my top 30 favorite video games of all time. In this particular video we're going to be doing games number 15 through 11. Going to be definitely highlighting a few PS1 games in this list, but a couple other things on other consoles / platforms. So let's just go ahead and get started on this one at number 15. This is Mega Man Legends for the PlayStation 1. As far as I know, the Blue Bomber's first foray into like a 3D polygonal world and graphical style, whereas most of the games, if not all the ones before this one, were side-scrolling kind of 2D graphics. So I want to start off by saying that I was never a big fan of Mega Man prior to this game's release. If it wasn't for the aforementioned gameplay style changes in this one, I don't think I ever would have been interested in anything that Mega Man was a part of. But in the mid to late-ish 90s, this game was announced for the original PlayStation. At the time, I was reading PSM Magazine, which was PlayStation Magazine, not the official PlayStation Magazine, but the best PlayStation Magazine, in my opinion. Even though the official PlayStation Magazine did have all those really cool demo discs, PSM was it was 90s, and it was PlayStation. It had colorful pages. The writers on that magazine were all really, really funny. I thought they were all insightful, and everything that was written in there was well written. It was basically my PlayStation Bible for years, through all the years that I was a PlayStation 1 owner and several of the years into the PS2's lifespan. Sadly, sometime in like the mid to late 2000s, it went away, and it became did it become the official PlayStation Magazine at some point? I can't remember now. It merged with OPM, or it became the new OPM, or it became something else, and it was no longer the magazine that I had come to grow and grow to love and come to know so well for so many years. But anyway, it was PSM Magazine that first showed me this game. The release date for this game was swiftly approaching, and PlayStation Magazine, PSM, quite often had reviews for the games before they were actually out. I remember having an issue of PSM and flipping through it and coming to the review section, and them having a pretty decent review of Mega Man Legends. And then, it said that it was going to be out like the following month. Well, the internet wasn't a prevalent thing back there. There sure as shit was no YouTube. There was no IGN in its current form anyway. So all I really ever had was commercials on TV and the magazines that I would, subscribe to or pick up at the store. So when the next episode or next issue of PSM came along, there was a new story about Mega Man Legends. There was a bit of a retraction on their review that they did. Their little article or blurb about it said, "We're sorry, we apologize. Capcom let us know that the game was delayed and that the review version that we received to base our review on was now going to be outdated, and we were going to have to re-review the game when it did come along." And so I was fascinated by that concept of, here's a game, it's on its way out, here's our review, oops, that game's not going to exist in that form. We have to step back on that, and we will put out a new review when we receive the final build or whatever for the game. It's interesting stuff, in my opinion, back then. I've always kind of been interested in the little minutia about the game's business, the game's journalism business, the whole industry as a whole. Certain little things like that were fascinating to me, and just for some reason it made me want the game even more than just seeing that it was a different style of gameplay. So in Mega Man Legends, the Mega Man character in this one is not necessarily the same as from the original line of side-scrolling platforming shooter puzzle games. Instead, in this game, Mega Man is a character who is traveling around with an older guy. Gramps, I think, is just how he's referred to. And Gramps' granddaughter, Beryl, I think. Well, I want to make sure I don't screw this up and look like a fool. I want to say that the girl, his name is Beryl, that he's traveling with, and her grandpa. And they're trying to find her parents, Gramps' son or daughter. Let me look at this here again, because I feel like I'm gonna screw up here. One day, a well-known digger, Beryl Casket, found a baby in an archaeological site. He named the baby Mega Man Volnut and raised him with his granddaughter Roll. Okay, so Beryl was Gramps and Roll was the granddaughter. 14 years have passed since the disappearance of Roll's parents while they were excavating a site. Mega Man and Roll have followed in the footsteps of Roll's parents in an effort to both discover the truth of their mysterious disappearance and to find the long-lost family treasure, the Mother Lode. And they work as what's called a digger. They go into ruins that have lots of old technology and enemies and whatnot, and they go into these things to... Oopsie. Lost my list here where I keep track of things. They go into these things to seek like minor treasures and things that they can use to update weapons and their vehicle. And in this first game, while they're on their way, trying to find Roll's parents, they have a problem with their airship, and they end up sort of crash landing, so to speak, on this island. Cadillac's Island. I had it and then it was gone, then it came back. And so they get diverted on this Cadillac's Island and they have to, deal with the local townsfolk and do things for them. And they run into some pirates that are causing everybody's life, misery. And they have to try to get their ship repaired so they can continue to look for Roll's parents and the Mother Lode. And so you take control of Mega Man, and you interact with Roll and with Beryl or Gramps, or the Grandpa character. Maybe Gramps is another misremembrance on my part. I'm getting older myself. And then there's Data the monkey, and there's the Bonds that are the pirate family that are terrorizing the island, and eventually Mega Man and his crew. And you will talk to the people in town, and you'll get leads on places where you can go and do the digs to recover items and upgrade your own items and all that kind of stuff. Gather the stuff that acts as currency. Sometimes you have to save or defend the townsfolk or the town itself. And the characters are super charming. There's a lot of humor in the game. It's not trying to take itself too seriously, which can't be said necessarily as much for the sequel, but I'll talk about the sequel at another time. But in this game, I don't know, it's humor and its charm are so good, and the gameplay scratched that itch for me that the original Mega Man games did not. I've never really ever played any of those older games. All I ever had to see was just how difficult they could be, and that was a big-time turnoff for me. But I do own some of the PS4 collection games that have some of the older ones. Somewhere down the road, I'll feel sadistic enough to torture myself with those games just to say that I have. But this game for me is where it's at. The adventure, the story, the characters, the charm, it's all such a perfect little game package. This game also is available on the N64 as Mega Man 64. I've never really played that version. I just prefer this one. This is the OG for me. All right, so let's move on to number 14, and I have to do something a little different for this. This next game is not a game that I own a physical version of yet. I'll have something to show on that sometime hopefully within the next month or two. But since I don't have a physical copy of this, in order to just be able to show you what it is, I pulled up the physical version or the digital version that I own on my computer. So we'll see how well this works. So, yes, this is a PC game, first and foremost, that's known as To the Moon. And while this is just the screen, the startup screen for it, hopefully it kind of conveys that it has sort of a 16-bit graphical style to it. So, I'm going to turn this camera back around to me. So that's game number 14 on my list, To the Moon. Now what To the Moon is a game basically made in RPG Maker. Made by a guy by the name of Kan Gao or Con Gao. I'm not for sure how to pronounce it because I don't know that I've ever heard it pronounced. But he was a guy who made this game on RPG Maker years ago. This game has been around now, I think, for probably close to around a decade-ish. It's a relatively short game. There isn't really much in the way of what you would call combat, but you do move around in like I said, a 16-bit sort of reminiscent of an old Super Nintendo or Genesis RPG game. But you're usually talking to people, touching or interacting with items and getting story interactions because of it. And it's a phenomenal game. Like, I can't say more good things about this game. I almost think if this had come out earlier in some of my earlier years, and if it was a longer adventure, this could challenge for a top spot on my list, because it came years later, because I actually watched people on YouTube playing it before I got to play it myself. It was one of those games where I learned to, if I saw something that looked interesting, don't watch any of the YouTubers I like playing it first. Play it for myself and then go back and see how they played it and what their reactions were. It's a YouTube / Twitch reaction style game, as in people usually love it because of the things that happen in the game, and it usually elicits a lot of emotion and a major response in most people, unless you're dead inside, in my opinion. It's not the kind of game I expect everybody to love, but man, you have to be pretty cold-hearted inside not to have the heartstrings tugged a little bit. And it's deep, it's grim in some ways, it's very complicated, and I don't want to spoil anything, so I'm just gonna give a little taste of what it's about. So the game essentially centers around these two doctors who work for this company, and I'm sorry, I'm gonna not remember names and things like that. Those little details sometimes escape me, and I play a lot of stuff, and it's kind of to blame for it. But I know one of them is Dr. Eva. I can't remember the guy's name, but it's a female pair who work for this company, and what they do is they fulfill dying people's final wishes. And what they do is, because it's a video game, it has like a sci-fi element of them being able to go into a person's mind and change things. Maybe there's a little Inception going on into it all. But what they're able to do is, if somebody says, you know, I've lived a long, long life, or, you know, I'm terminally ill and I'm younger and I never got to do this, or I would have always loved to have been here or done this or that, and they go in and they can change things by interacting with a person's memories, seeing the person's memories as if it's like a show or a game that you're playing, and talk to them or uncover mysteries, or you know, try to steer at a base memory level something in their world, so that when they pass away or right before they pass away, in their memory, they've now had a different life, experienced something new or different, or something that they always wanted to do and lost the opportunity to. That's why I'm saying it's really deep, and this game will make you think, and it will make you think so many times. You'll be second guessing everything, and I think it's just fantastic that it does that. In this game, they go to meet this guy named Johnny. He's older, he's approaching the end of his life, he's sick, he's not going to last much longer. He has requested this group come to him and fulfill his final wish of being able to go to the moon. Hence the title, To the Moon. But it's so much deeper and intricately crafted than just, I want to go to the moon. And like I said, that's where I don't want to say any more. I don't want to spoil it. If you have not played that game, check it out. If you don't want to play it or you can't get it on PC or whatever, I think it's available on other platforms right now. I'm going to be receiving a physical copy of it for an actual console soon, but I'm going to chill out on saying anything more about that until it arrives. But if you're not able to easily play it, I think I have it on Steam or through other means, and I can play it through Steam. It's not very expensive, and but if you can't play it for whatever the reason may be, then I do encourage to look it up on YouTube. Watch one of those gameplay playthroughs or Let's Plays that doesn't have commentary if you don't want to hear somebody else talking over it, or watch it with somebody who you might be interested to see their reaction to it. It's such a perfect game for that. It's a perfect game for two things, in my opinion. One, the reaction thing, watching somebody play it on YouTube and watching how they react to it, how they play the game. But it's also great, I think, for sitting down on the couch with a friend, a loved one, or whatever, and being like, hey, I want to play this game, and I want you to sit here and watch it and see what it has to say, or play this game and I'll sit here with you and we'll go through it together. I can't say that about a lot of games, but this is one I feel like it's meant for that kind of experience. So anyway, that's To the Moon, PC game, but like I said, I do believe it is either on some of the consoles or it's coming to the consoles, and you'll see more about that on my channel in the near future. So that's game number 14, To the Moon. Now we'll get back into some games I actually have the copies of. Returning to PS1 games, number 13 on my list is Grandia or Grandia from Game Arts and on Sony PS1. This is a Japanese role-playing game, JRPG. Fantastic game. Like a game that when I've played it in the past just made me feel really, really happy. Like a lot of these JRPGs can have some grim or heart-wrenching type of stuff. They can usually deal with some pretty heavy issues. And I'm not saying that Grandia doesn't. I'm just saying that overall, the character, especially Justin here, the dude here on the back of the case who's, got his hand up in the air. I don't know that there's been too many more positive protagonists in JRPGs than a guy like Justin from Grandia. Now, I haven't played this game in a long, long time, so my memory is going to be actually somewhat hazy on a lot of the details of this world. What I remember the most is that Justin's a younger fella, and his friends are all young. I don't know that I want to call them kids. I don't remember if they're kid age, teenage, or maybe a little bit older, but just look young because most of your characters in JRPGs tend to either be young or are just drawn to look really young. But what happens is Justin is living in a town. I think he's I don't know if he's got a parental figure or figures or if he's just sort of one of the kids that are there. But he embarks on an adventure. And this is going to sound like a million other JRPGs because a lot of them are similar. But he goes out into the world on this adventure to, man, I have to look at this. Travel across vast worlds and unravel the threads of an ancient legend in a quest that challenges your courage. A luminous empire, an ominous secret, an unbelievable, intriguing adventure, over 200 weapons, enemies, and items to collect, more than 80 magic spells and battle techniques, a unique magic and character development system that puts your strategic skills to the test, warm and enchanting worlds, each with their own architectural style. Over 8 hours of gameplay, can you solve the mysteries of Grandia? I don't know if I've really ever solved the mysteries of Grandia because I can't remember. I don't remember the impetus for their journey or anything. I just know that Grandia is such a fantastic game that I don't guess I really need to remember the specific details. The reason why I remember the game so much is because I loved it. And I just remember that there was like all that childlike discovery and adventure in the game. Like I said, Justin is this positive character. So a lot of times the protagonists are just so dark and brooding. It's such a breath of fresh air that Grandia took a different focus. But I am sad to sit here and say that I can't remember as much of the details as I do for some of the other games on my list. But I don't want to sell the game short. I still love it. It's still amazing in my opinion. So we'll just go ahead and jump on to number 12. And we're still in the PlayStation ballpark. We're still in the JRPG ballpark. This time around, we're talking about Lunar Silver Star Story Complete. This is the full, awesome, I call it a special edition. It's not referred to as a special edition, but Working Designs did these amazing packages for a lot of their JRPGs and other games from back on this generation. This, sadly, is not my original copy of the game. My original copy of Lunar and the sequel that has the really cool box for it were in immaculate condition. But years and years ago, I made the stupid decision of selling all my PS1 games when I wanted to get a PS2 and funding the money I got for them to get my next console. I didn't realize that stuff was going to be so collectible, nor did I really realize how much that stuff like this would really mean to me down the road to still have it. But I still was able to get fully complete boxes for both of these games. Now this one here has got some damage to this front cover, and there's scuffs and folds to all of it, but it's complete. It's everything that was supposed to come with this game. This one a little bit less elaborate than the sequel, but like you get a nice hardbound book for the game, which is, it's like a art book / manual for the game. All kinds of really cool stuff in it. Hardbound book, really awesome. And then inside the case itself, I think I heard a disc trying to rattle around inside this, so I want to check this delicately. That's not fun. There's a cloth map included in this that is trying to stick to the inside of the package. There's a cloth map. And then the game has 4 discs, but discs 1 and 2 are the game, and I think there are some variants to some of the discs or covers or whatever to this game. I'm not interested in any of that kind of collecting for this. Just to have a copy that I can play was all I wanted. But there's the discs for the game, and then in the back of this is a making of disc and a soundtrack disc. Now the making of disc is not a DVD. It's not something that you put in a DVD player. DVDs weren't really a thing at the time of this. So you'd wonder, how does that work? Well, it literally just goes into your PlayStation and allows you to access some stuff. The 2 main things that I remember that are a part of the making of disc is like a documentary kind of thing showing the making of the game. And then, if I remember correctly, unless it's on the second game, there's like a puzzle game in here that's really, really fun. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but it was a nice little bonus in one of these games. So anyway, close this back up. So I do remember Lunar's story a little bit better than Grandia. In Lunar, you play as Alex, a young boy who wants to be like his hero, Dragon Master Dyne. This is Alex here. Maybe he's not a young boy. This might be a game where more of these characters are probably like mid to late teenage years. But he lives in this little town, and he is around this lady here who, God, all of a sudden my brain just went, is her name just Luna? Ugh, I feel dumb for not remembering some of these more important points. These are games that I have not played in a long time, and I really need to rectify that. I need to get done being so, knee-deep in PlayStation 4 and newer stuff. But in this game, anyway, like I was saying, Alex, and I believe Luna, and maybe even some other characters at the beginning, leave their little village, and they have to go out and go on a grand adventure that was started by them talking to a dragon near the beginning of the game. And then, of course, they meet all kinds of little, other characters along the way on their journey, including some bad people. And like I said, JRPGs kind of just say, okay, here's some people, here's where you're starting, here's kind of like why you're doing it, now go do it. And just send you out on the world, and all kinds of fun stuff happens. Now, I'm not trying to be reductive on any of these games. They're amazing adventures. For me, they were at the right time in my life to really, allow me to live a life that I wasn't living in my regular existence. And that's probably kind of sad to say something like that, but games have always been my escape, and these games, never let me down in that regard, and that's why I've just loved them and remember them still to this day. So anyway, that was number 12 on my list, Lunar Silver Star Story, complete for PS1, complete because these games originated on the Sega CD, but I never had that console, and I don't think I would ever go back and play the older versions of this. This, to me, these are perfect. Alright, so let's jump to number 11, the last game for this video. And we're coming back into a little bit more of a recent time frame. What we got here is The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt for PlayStation 4. This is the original version of the game, the day one or whatever you might want to call it, with the bonus content, The Witcher Universe Compendium, detailed world map, official soundtrack, wolf head stickers, also nice Slippy. Here's the stuff that's inside the package for this. Man, if we could only go back to this kind of a time with CD Projekt Red. But this is a little note from them to the people buying the game, appreciating their support, talking about how they were going to do tons of free DLC and update and support the game. This was what led to the reputation that they had that kind of almost got destroyed with Cyberpunk 2077. I say almost because I don't think they're completely dead and buried from all that, but and they're not to me. They're not for me. They're not. But this is not the kind of company that they are anymore in most people's eyes. So here's the wolf stickers. Oh, those are super dark without the right light striking against them. They're really neat. Soundtrack that has 31 tracks on it from the game. That's the map. We'll get that here in a moment. There's the Witcher Universe Compendium. So I'm guessing that this is just going to kind of be like, yeah, like maybe some art, maybe some story related stuff, character related stuff. There's the game manual, so it is a bit of a separate item, but showing you the HUD and things like that, user interface, words on paper, and then here's the map. Hopefully this won't be too hard to fold out and show real quick. The world of The Witcher 3, which is a fantastic and amazing, beautiful, in-depth world as far as I'm concerned. It's not what you might call a true open world in terms of, like, say, how a game like Grand Theft Auto 5 or Red Dead Redemption 2 have one big map that there's like no loading screens for it. You can just wander anyway. Witcher 3's world was split into a couple of different areas, but it's because you're supposed to believe that you've traveled a distance away from the first areas that you're in. But yeah, they even said right here, massive open world adventure. It's a phenomenal open world, beautiful, fantasy styled, much better built and crafted, and definitely more detailed and beautiful world than in Skyrim. But I mean, obviously this game had a few more years in the oven. Skyrim came out in 2011. This was 2015. But I also just think that Skyrim's world is perfect for the game that it was. And I think Witcher 3's world is just an open world with all of the Witcher 3 stuff populated into that world. So that's a slight compliment to Skyrim's world for kind of being more like I don't think Skyrim could play in a world like this. I think Skyrim's world was tailor-made for it, and I think this is more the modern style open world that you expect to see from CD Projekt Red or Rockstar, or like maybe even some of the Ubisoft games. So hopefully people understand exactly what I mean by that. I also have to show this, which is the Witcher 3 Wild Hunt Complete Edition. When I bought my PS4 originally, Witcher 3 Wild Hunt was like one of the first games that I wanted to get. But I didn't play it for a while because I knew that they were putting out DLC and stuff, and I didn't really want to jump into the game, play it, and then be like 6 months later, oh, here's some more DLC. Let's go back and play that DLC. I think I grew to understand more with a game like The Witcher 3 how I don't really care all that much for DLC. Like, having DLC in a game like this isn't as big a deal as maybe I'd hoped it was going to be. I'm not saying that the DLC for this isn't good. It's fantastic. It's amazing. The Blood and Wine DLC, the one here in the middle on this picture, there's Hearts of Stone and Blood and Wine, and then a bunch of free stuff that's like armor or skins or whatever. But the Blood and Wine expansion is almost a game of its own, like 20 hours of gameplay. Hearts of Stone is probably 5 to 10, Blood and Wine is like 20 or possibly more, and it takes place in its own area, whereas the Hearts of Stone is in the main world map of the game, and Blood and Wine takes you to a brand new area. But when I did eventually play my original copy of that, I didn't have the money, I think, at the time to buy the DLC, and so I played and finished this version of the game all start to finish, and then I was like, that was really great, I can't wait to play it again someday. Then this thing came along, and I was like, well, let me just get that. It wasn't really all that much more to buy this complete edition, which I think, I can't remember. Yeah, there's no card in here with a code for the DLC, so I'm like 99% sure DLC is all on the disc in the complete edition. So I was like, let me just play this version. I don't have to worry about downloading anything. I won't have to pay for the DLC and just have it exist somewhere out there on a server. I'll play through start to finish, plus saves don't carry over to this, and it was all brand new trophies, so it was like, I guess I'll play it again and earn those trophies again. I did not platinum it, though. But I went back in and played this, and I was looking on the map trying to figure out, well, where do the DLCs come in? Can I just go do the DLCs? Nope, they were kind of like level restricted, as in if you were not at a specific level for them, it didn't recommend that you play it that way. And that was when I was kind of like, man, it's kind of strange that these things are on the map to do, but you can't access them until you're at a certain level. And then I'm like, I want to say Blood and Wine because it was the second DLC, required a higher level. I think you can actually beat this game before you were at that level. And it made me question whether or not it's all that important to do this DLC stuff. Because why would you, like, you're trying to, like, save the world in a way from the Wild Hunt, these evil entities that are mainly pursuing a girl in the game who is kind of like your character's adopted daughter or whatever. But you're trying to find her, you're trying to stop the Wild Hunt, you're trying to get all the different characters that you can encounter in this on board to help you, and it's all building up to a crescendo, and then you're like, let me just leave behind this world for 20 hours and go play the Blood and Wine thing and solve some other mysteries and take care of some other antagonists. And as amazing as this game is, number 11 on my all-time favorites list, as amazing as this game is, the writing is, the characters, the voice acting, the world, everything about it, it still suffers from, and most of the games with DLC all suffer from the same thing, which is like, hurry up and wait. Man, this is a really amazing thing you got to do, and there's some urgency. Not a lot of these games put a timer on the UI and say, you need to get this done, or else if you go over there and mess with all that, somebody's gonna die, or the world isn't gonna get saved. But it really makes you feel like I'm gearing towards the end, and ooh, squirrel, or whatever, that stupid movie where the dogs can talk, or you can hear its thoughts or whatever, and it's like, squirrel, it's easily distracted. It throws off the pacing, and it makes the game sort of feel like, I don't know, it takes away some of the urgency for me. Doesn't take anything away from the game itself, and like I said, the DLC is amazing, but I realize with this that even DLC is still a flawed system, and I wish they would take DLC like that and just develop it into a sequel or whatever. So the camera's giving me the old dead battery wink, telling me I need to wrap this up, and I think I've said about all I really need to say about these games. Those were games 15 through 11 on my top 30 favorite games of all time list, and I'll be back in the coming days to finish this off. 2 more videos, 10 through 6, 5 through 1, but there will be an honorable mentions video in the middle of that. And so I appreciate you for sticking around, watching these, listening to me ramble, and we'll see you in the next one.